gospel might be called the anatomy of a conversion. It begins in the city of Jericho. Jesus goes down to Jericho, and Jericho in biblical times was the city of sin. We're all citizens of Jericho. But the good news is that Jesus is passing through Jericho. That's the gospel, that's the good news. We say we all live in Jericho. We're all members of this dysfunctional community, this dysfunctional family. And the tax collector Zacchaeus is kind of like the representative. And he's no ordinary sinner, no ordinary tax collector. He's the chief tax collector. He's a sinner among sinners. And Zacchaeus is despised because he's a collaborator with Rome. He betrays his fellow countrymen to gather tribute for the occupying party, Rome. And so not only is Zacchaeus chief tax collector, he's a wealthy man. He's been at it for a while. And like we say, he's more proficient at it than others. Some of us are more proficient at sin than others also. But Zacchaeus has this thirst for God, this desire for God. And that's the lure of grace. Father Barron says that we're all wired for God. No matter how far away we fall, we want to see Jesus, just like Zacchaeus. That's the deepest hunger of the human soul, like we say, for truth, for life, for love, for God himself. Okay? And so the process of salvation begins with the divine initiative. The Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost. And Zacchaeus, having this thirst for God, climbs a tree. Climbing the tree is like an act of humility. It's also a bold step, like putting aside human respect. If you see someone in a tree, an adult, it's kind of, you think it's a little odd. Okay. Well, he goes out on a limb. He takes that chance. Okay. Like what's people say? What's Zacchaeus doing in a tree? Okay. Well, sometimes we have to step out in faith. Like one of the priests, Father Phil Bloom, says, if you see someone in church, you say, well, what's that guy doing in church? Well, sometimes that thirst for God causes us to step out, and not to discourage it, but to encourage it, to help people who are out on that limb to find Christ. And when our Lord sees Zacchaeus up in the tree, he says, "Today I must stay at your house." God looks for the smallest opening, and he's ready to pounce when we open the door. He calls us by name. He doesn't only know humanity in the generic sense. He knows each one personally by name. And he announces without being invited that he's coming to Zacchaeus' home that very day. And the point is, Jesus wants to invade our lives. He wants to take over your lives. He doesn't want to stay in my guest room, off in the corner somewhere. Like, he's moving in and he's taking over. And Zacchaeus has the right response. He entrusts everything to him. All we are, all we have. Zacchaeus goes all in. And this gratitude of Zacchaeus is expressed by reparation and generosity. Half of my possessions I shall give to the poor. If I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over. Father Phil Bloom also mentions there must have been quite a line outside his house that evening. But the point is that when we respond to God, when we respond, we recognize God's generosity, we forget ourselves, and we respond in turn with generosity. And so that goal is we respond to generosity with generosity, to God's total gift of self, by our total gift of self in return.